Hey gang, Will Smith just came out with a video apology of sorts regarding the whole Chris Rock incident, and it is a case study in how leaders should reply or respond to a situation when they screwed up. So I want to take a minute and dissect the video and walk through it in case you ever find yourself in a situation where you really screwed up and you've affected a bunch of people in a way that you didn't mean to. This is a great example on how to proceed. Now, I will say it's through the lens of a slight bias that I am a big fan of Will Smith's. That said, I do have a couple of points where I critique where he could have done a little bit better. It's an excellent example. There's a couple points that I'll highlight that if you ever find yourself in, might want to tweak a little. So without further ado, let's dive right in. First point, I love how it starts off very casual, very authentic feel to it. You hear the background noises. It's you've got a couple cameras going, but it doesn't feel like a big studio. Don't overproduce it. Be authentic. Be yourself. You hear his sigh as he comes in and sort of says, "Let's do this," right? You get that sense.
Why didn't you apologize to Chris in your acceptance speech? I was fogged out by that point. It's all fuzzy. I've reached out to Chris, and the message that came back is that he's not ready to talk, and when he is, he will reach out. So I will say to you, Chris, I apologize to you. My behavior was unacceptable, and I'm here whenever you're ready to talk.
Okay, this is the one point that I want to make that I critique the whole thing. It's the one point that I think he could have done just a slight bit better. I love the authentic feel. I don't think it was his intention to put it this way, but the way he said it there about, I reached out to Chris and he's not ready to talk, so Chris, when you're ready, come back. That puts a little too much onus on Chris. Will was definitely in the wrong. If you know the history, there's a lot of history there that Chris, maybe should have known better and all that, but I'm not going to get into those details here. If you're the leader and you screwed up, make sure that there's no opportunity for people to say that you're putting the onus back on the person that you offended or that you wronged in some instant. That's the only critique I put there. It's a little too much on putting it back on Chris. It's a minor detail. I don't think that was Will's heart, but it doesn't matter. The lesson learned moving forward is make sure that you leave no opportunity for them to put the onus back. What he does do right here is right up front, I apologize. He takes the ownership for the issue, for the problem, for the mistake. As a leader, great leaders pull in the blame. Push out the fame. We won't cover that much here, but they pull in the blame. If you screwed up, you own it. If your team screwed up, you own it. So if there's a wrong, if something's gone wrong and it's on your team that did it, even if somebody else did it, you own it. You're the leader. Pull in the blame. So in this case, it was definitely Will specifically. If it had been a member of his team, he should still own it because he's the leader. He owns it, right? And that's what he's doing here. Good sense there. Pull in the blame. Lesson learned. Don't leave any opportunity for somebody to say that you're putting the onus on the person who was wronged or offended.
I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I saw an interview that Chris's mother did, and that was one of the things about that moment. I just didn't realize, and I wasn't thinking, but how many people got hurt in that moment. So I want to apologize to Chris's mother. I want to apologize to Chris's family. Specifically Tony Rock. We had a great relationship. Tony Rock was my man, and this is probably irreparable. I spent the last 3 months replaying and understanding the nuances and the complexities of what happened in that moment.
Okay. What I love here, very important for leaders to recognize. When we screw up, we always overlook the broader stakeholder group that we have offended, that we have hurt, that we have harmed or wronged in some way. Will nails it here. The fact that he calls out Chris's mother and the other family members, that he gives names to them, as a leader, you have to do that. Just like Will, there was, we talk a little bit later, he talks a little bit later about his fan base. You can't name everybody that you upset or offended when you're a leader, but you can put names and examples to it. And that's exactly what Will does here. I love that he recognized that, I offended other people. And these were people who were still relatively directly impacted, like Chris's mother. But even if it wasn't, if you can put an example, like maybe call it a specific fan by name. I got this letter from Jenna who said that she had this feeling afterwards, whatever the case may be, put names and faces to the examples and make sure that you share with your audience, with your constituents, with your stakeholders, that you recognize that you have offended far more people than just the immediate person that you offended or wronged, that you recognize the scope. As a leader, you serve so many stakeholders. No different than Will or a famous actor who has so many fans and followers, right? You serve many stakeholders. And when you screw up, when we screw up, we cause damage to many more people than the person we directly offended. Make sure you name them, put examples to them, and let people know that you recognize that you didn't just offend one person, that this is a broader issue. Now he goes on to talk about the technicalities of it, the fact that there's far more involved than many people realize.
And I'm not going to try to unpack all of that right now, but I can say to all of you, there is no part of me that thinks that was the right way to behave in that moment. There's no part of me that thinks that's the optimal way to handle a feeling of disrespect or insults.
Again, pulling in the blame, making it very clear. He's not saying that any part of this was right. He's not leaving any opportunity for other people to say, well, he still thinks he did the right thing, or, well, he doesn't really accept full accountability for it. There's no part of me. He was very clear. Same for you. If you have to apologize, leave no room for doubt that you screwed up, you did wrong, and you apologize, so that you are setting the lesson for those who follow you. None of this was right. Great example.
Jada rolled her eyes. Did she tell you to do something? No. It's like, I made a choice on my own, from my own experiences, from my history with Chris. Jada had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry, babe. I'm going to say sorry to my kids and my family for the heat that I brought on all of us. To all my fellow nominees, this is a community. It's like I won because you voted for me. And it really breaks my heart to have stolen and tarnished your moment. I can still see Questlove's eyes. It happened on Questlove's award, and it's like I'm sorry really isn't sufficient. Well,
again, another stakeholder group, right? He started off, the first stakeholder group he broadened, he realized was Chris's family. He realized he didn't just harm Chris, he harmed Chris's family. Now again, he screwed up, and he's recognizing that this has an impact on his wife, his family, and Questlove, who was the award winner, right? And I love how he says, I realize that an apology, that saying I'm sorry, might not be sufficient or is not sufficient. He's making it clear that there might not be anything he can say or even do to make up for this, but he's still apologizing. He's doing what he can do. So 2 key points here. He broadens the stakeholder group. Again, a different group of stakeholders, puts names and faces to it, specific examples so others can relate. Even if you were offended and you're not named by him, you can relate to the people he recognizes he offended. You can associate with it. Make sure you broaden your stakeholder group, you pull in the blame, and you share these examples with names and faces that people can understand and appreciate.
What would you say to the people who looked up to you before the slap, or people who expressed that you let them down? So there's 2 things. One, disappointing people is my central trauma. I hate when I let people down. So it hurts. It hurts me psychologically and emotionally to know I didn't live up to people's image and impression of me. And the work I'm trying to do is I am deeply remorseful, and I'm trying to be remorseful without being ashamed of myself, right? I'm human, and I made a mistake, and I'm trying not to think of myself as a piece of shit. So I would say to those people, I know it was confusing. I know it was shocking. But I promise you, I am deeply devoted and committed to putting light and love and joy into the world. And, you know, if you hang on, I promise we'll be able to be friends again.
Okay. He wraps up with a great example there at the end. In the end, he humanizes himself, right? He says, I screwed up. I'm human. I could have done better, you know, but I love the example he uses where he says, and this is something that we often need to hear too when we screwed up, right? We're not that screw up. We made a mistake, but we are not, as he put it so eloquently, pieces of shit. At the end of the day, if you screwed up, own it, take accountability, but remember that you're not a terrible person because you made a bad mistake. Will has done so many amazing things in his career. He's helped so many people. It's just, you know, to think that this incident has defined him is not right. And nor should he think that. Nor should you think that your bad mistake that you made defines you. Is it a bad mistake? Do you have a lot to make up for? Probably, possibly, just like Will is doing. At the end of the day, own it, reflect on the fact that you're human, take accountability for it, and understand that you made a mistake. Make sure people see that humanizing piece of it. If you see Will's authenticity throughout this video, you get a sense of, you know, he's genuinely sorry. You can tell he's struggling with it. He talks about the issues he's working through on it. Now, that's not to say that we should entirely feel sorry for him, because at the end of the day, he did make the mistake, right? But he's owning it. And he's taking accountability for it. He's taking responsibility for it. And he's trying to move on. And that's what I like at the end. He wraps up with, he's not saying he's going to forget what happened. He's not saying he's put it in the past. But he does put an emphasis on the future. If you stay with me, I promise we can be friends again. I love this example. Will did an excellent job. Yeah, there's some tweaky things, but you know, it comes across as the authenticity. Make sure you do the same. At the end of the day, if you're a leader, if you screwed up, make sure you take accountability for it, pull in the blame, you're authentic about it. You name the stakeholders that you directly wronged. You expand to the broader stakeholder group that you realize you also wronged or offended. Remember that you're human and move forward. Thank you for listening. I appreciate all of you. As great leaders, remember, you serve so many people, so many stakeholders. So remember, gang, keep serving.